Well, greetings of the day, dear colleagues, and I'd like to greet you from IATELS, International Association for Technology, Education and Language Studies. And just now we had our webinar, a glimpse into online education. Um, we discussed several urgent questions with our participants, and now I'd like to share with you their reflections on the experiences and practices which were shared by our participants from different countries. Yes, Ruben, what do you think about the program we just had?
Well, I think it was a good exchange. I think there were different reactions from different countries. We had participants from Turkey, Indonesia, and Thailand, and the United States. And all of those countries seem to have unique um, challenges to deal with. And so they're applying solutions in different ways. But do you want to go through the three questions that we asked?
Yes, actually, I just wanted to share the questions, and based on these questions, we will give their reflection, because for now it's not very much clear what exactly we were talking about. So we had three questions in our agenda of the webinar. The first one was how the global lockdown affected the education in your institution and in your country. The second question was what are the consequences of the latest educational rearrangements and their influence on the quality of education in your institution? And the third question, what solutions and practices of online learning proved to be the most effective? So three questions were discussed with the educators from different countries. As mentioned, from UK, from USA, from Philippines, and Thailand, and Indonesia, USA, and Turkey. Quite different countries, but we observed very many similar things which we had in our experience. Well, so very first question, how the global lockdown affected the education in your institution? Ruben, just to sum up, what were the reflections from our participants?
Well, of course, schools everywhere have had to adapt and change, and very quickly. So many institutions weren't prepared for this. In some countries, teachers have not had training to teach with technology. In some countries, the schools remained open and then closed quickly when the pandemic got worse. In other countries, the schools closed right away and have stayed closed, and there are strict lockdowns in those countries. So those were the initial effects of the pandemic in the various countries. They all experienced sudden change and the needs to adapt. So that was the effect.
Yes, so really it was mentioned that the change which was expected was very much, something happened all of a sudden, and students and teachers were struggling of this transformation from face-to-face to online learning. And also we're experiencing very many emotional problems and feeling lost and disoriented in this situation. And yes, the practices were quite different, and now the situations in the schools are quite different. Someone are locked altogether, someone really maybe partially opened or opened fully. Also, there was mentioned one interesting experience that parents, with their attitudes, were deciding and solving if to open the education or not, if to keep face-to-face education or maybe keep on with online education. Well, we see that parents can be influential in this solution, this decision. And so that's why it was mentioned several times that the role of the parents in online education is really very much important. Well, and now, with all this situation, maybe let's come up to the second question. What are the consequences of the latest educational rearrangements and their influence on the quality of education in your institution and in your country? Well, just in a few sentences, Ruben, what do you think? What are the main consequences?
Well, first, students are not receiving a quality education, um, even in countries where the school systems are different and operate differently. They're all experiencing that consequence. The students' learning will be affected for quite some time to come. And a couple of people mentioned um, damage to the education of an entire generation, possibly. We won't know for 2 or 3 years, really, after the pandemic has ended, what the full consequences have been. Um, but there were no um, shared observations about ways that their countries were dealing with the issues. All of them were different. Every country seems to be different. The only thing they share is shock and confusion, and having to adapt, having to adapt. And you're right, the role of the parents was mentioned frequently as being very important, either for positive or negative effects.
Yes, right. So, really, we're discussing quality of education in this period of time. And unfortunately, all of the participants were stressing the negative effect and deep concerns about the future and about all the generation altogether. Because socialization, broken socialization, was mentioned several times. And also, maybe the limitation in interests of the students, they become just locked in online virtual world and online entertainments, and that's all. And of course it affects their lives, and it surely will affect their future performances in education, professionally, socially, and so on and so forth. So really the real consequences of this year perhaps will be observed in future. Well, and also we had the question, the third one. What are the best practices and solutions of online learning you observed or can recommend for your institution or for your colleagues in other countries? Well, Ruben.
Yeah, again, I think every participant had different suggestions that they had observed in their countries. Um, One interesting approach that we heard about was a school, I believe it was in Thailand, where the teachers came to school every day, even though the students did not. So the students were home, but teachers came to the central location of the school building and used the technology there, but that gave them access to other materials, visual materials, music, audio, that they could incorporate into their lessons. And that seemed to help students be more engaged in that one school. Um, we also, obviously, we talked about teachers learning better how to use the technology themselves, and becoming more involved, more engaged in the person to person contact on the screen, you can never reach the same level of engagement as you could in person, but still, there are ways to use the technology to encourage engagement from the students. And I mentioned, especially in the US, certain teachers have gone out of their way to become creative and inventive, inventing new approaches to how to reach across the wires and reach their students and draw them in. So those were some approaches we heard.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And really, motivation also was stressed several times that students with low motivation, they become completely lost in online learning. And so that's why the personality of the teacher is of prime importance, perhaps. So we have these types of motivation: auto motivation and inner motivation, exterior and interior motivation. So in case of the exterior motivation, when the students do not feel this deep desire to learn, the ability, the emotions of the teacher helps a lot to engage the students in online environment. So of course we have to stress again the importance of interactivity in online environment, making establishing the personal contacts with our students, even if we are so much separated in distance and time. Wow. And actually, there were yes, maybe teaching from school environment was one of the best practices, really, which was mentioned, because the teachers were feeling themselves in their own, environment, to feel more comfortable also to teach and to use all their available materials and equipments, laboratories, and so on and so forth. As for other practices, flipped classroom was mentioned as the one, as the methodology to apply, perhaps with the using videos and then discussions within the online class based on the videos. And still, our participants express maybe more hopes for future practices and more effective solutions in the future. Still, it was stressed that teachers need more training on online learning methodology, on online learning techniques, also on motivation and how to make this online learning more motivating for our students. Um, well, and something else maybe, Ruben, you'd like to add?
Well, just in general, I thought it was a very, very productive discussion. Several different outlooks. There was quite, as you said, there was quite an emphasis on the negative effects of the pandemic and how it's affected education in general. But I think we still heard some hope from several of the participants, because we do have the benefit of technology to try to overcome the disadvantages of not being in school. So in a way, we're fortunate that we do have this tool that allows us to overcome the, the poor learning environment of trying to learn at home with limited resources, with parents who may not be able to participate fully because they're not educated themselves, and to even accomplish a little bit of socialization through the technology. Because if the students are locked in their houses, this may be the only chance they have to talk to other children and share ideas and experiences. So I think there is some hope.
Thank you. Thank you. Of course, we need some hope, otherwise nothing will work. Yes, and the teacher is the one who is in the center of learning process, no matter what we can expect from our parents or from the school administration or anything. But still, if the teacher is not motivated to learn, to inspire, nothing will work. So, of course, very many things depend on the teacher's personality and engagement in all of these processes. It's hard. It's really very much challenging, and very many teachers just feel very lost in all of these situations, education, but also we can see that they are working hard to find a solution and to cope with the problems they are experiencing in their classrooms.
And I hope that if we have more participants in the future, there'll be a larger group to share their experiences, and the group can learn more ideas.
Yes, we definitely decided that we are going to have these meetings monthly, every month, and we are going to make a schedule of specific topics concerning online education and effective teaching online. And I hope that we will share our experiences, we will share our visions, and it will be helpful for our colleagues in different institutions to cope with these challenges of online education. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruben.
Thank you.
Yes, so hope to see you soon at our future sessions. Have a
Yes,
good day.
thank you.